What separates the most successful people from those who are always stuck and struggling? There's one key trait that I've seen across every executive, entrepreneur, athlete, even parent, partner, doctor, literally anyone else who finds success in life. It's this: the ability to get back up after they've fallen down, the ability to ride the wave of life and roll with the punches. By learning and adopting a mindset of resilience, you can be the person who stumbles but never falls. And that is a person who will always find success. Welcome to Change Made Easy. Changing your habits, routines, and behaviors is hard. We make it easy. I'm Paul Leviton, a board licensed coach who has been helping people just like you to create lasting change in their health, wealth, and relationships for over 12 years. Mike Tyson said, "Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face." And the funny thing about life is, it will punch you in the face a lot. So if you aren't resilient, if you aren't able to deal with setbacks, you might as well give up now because you're going nowhere fast. Fortunately for you, however, resilience is like a muscle, and with the right mindset and the right exercises, you can strengthen it over time. And that's why I'm so excited to introduce you to today's guest. Steve Hochman is an entrepreneur and fitness coach who co-founded the world's largest fitness bootcamp company before losing it all and starting from scratch just a few years later. After losing his business, his finances, his marriage, and everything else he had, Steve was forced to look inward at the only common denominator of all of those things: himself. That inspired him to go on a journey of self-development and personal growth that has lasted almost 10 years. Now, Steve is bringing his knowledge and insights into his new business. He's building a life of service, and he has lots of insights to share. In this conversation, Steve and I discuss what it means to have a bulletproof mindset and how you can cultivate it for yourself. The first step you need to take towards a life of self-mastery, why you should choose being proud over being happy, and Steve's story about him noticing his ego in an argument he was having with his wife will be helpful for you if you're married, single, or in between. All of this and more in our conversation highlights the level and strength of Steve's resilience, which is something that we can all use a little more of. So please enjoy this conversation with Steve Hochman. What does it mean to have a bulletproof mindset?
Yeah, that's a good question. The best way to explain that is with an analogy. All right. So let's say you want to work out. You set up a time to work out at, maybe it's like, let's say it's like 9 a.m, right? And you look outside and it's dark and rainy and cold and windy. It's horrible out there. And you're like, damn, you know what? I'm not going to go out today. I am not going to go out today. Now let's take that same scenario. It's cold, it's dark, it's windy, it's rainy, but you got to pick your kid up from school and your kid's sitting there in that cold, windy, dark rain. There's no chance at all that you're not going out and picking your kid up. I don't care how windy or rainy it is. In fact, the more windy and rainy it is, the faster you're going to go and pick your kid up. That's a bulletproof mindset. So having a bulletproof mindset means you remove the problem, which is yourself. So, and by the way, I'm just talking about me. Like I healed myself and I fixed myself and I continue to fix myself and I share what works for me. And good news is it happens to work for a lot of people and all my coaching clients as well. But I used to make things about me all the time. And when you're focused on what you want, then it really depends on your feelings. Like right now, I want to get lean, but now I want to eat this cake. Now I want to go out and drink. Now I want to go work out. So when you really attach everything you do to a bigger purpose than yourself, like that example I was giving you with picking up your kid in the rain, then you have a bulletproof mindset, something that's unstoppable where nothing would keep you from achieving the goal that you set forth.
Yeah, I think that's so powerful, especially as you said, the part where it's like, if it was actually raining and windy, you would actually be more inclined to do that because that's how important it is to you. It's not even like you would avoid it, like you'd run headfirst into it. And that's the strength of being a parent or being in love or something like that. So when it comes to your own personal journey, tell us a little bit about how you went from nothing to building one of the most successful fitness businesses in the country to then losing it all and now are building back, and a brief summary of like the ups and downs of your personal and professional journey.
Yeah, I always had goals, but I never really had a purpose in life. Not until I finally did find my purpose. But so I would achieve a goal For instance, I'd get a scholarship, a football scholarship, but then once I got it, I didn't really have a purpose. So then, you know, it really didn't work out the way I had envisioned it. Or I created this giant franchise. That was the goal. But once I did it, then what? And usually the then what is not a good then what. It's usually, it would be a negative outcome. So it'd be a huge positive outcome, then a negative outcome. And really, I didn't have an anchor by which to measure everything that I did in life. And when I finally figured out that my purpose is to give the most value to the most people in the most ways, when I really knew that was the reason I'm here on this earth, then anything I could do, anything I would do, I would measure it. Am I falling off course of my purpose? And I would instantly get back off course, where before I had nothing to measure it by. So I would achieve something, but then I would drift off course and not even realize it. So that was the biggest thing for me of why I would go to the top and to the bottom and what I did to fix it.
So how did you come to that purpose, and why is it that the thing that you chose to be the guiding light in your life?
Yeah, I really have always enjoyed helping people. It's one of those things where when you really break through with someone and have that transformation, mental or physical, it's almost like a high, and you can't buy that feeling.
Hey, real quick, we'll be back to the show in just a few seconds. But right now, I have to tell you about the free Change Made Easy private Facebook community. If you want to join hundreds of change seekers just like you and get free trainings, resources, and direct help from me in order to help make your quest for change easy, then click the link in the show notes that says Facebook group now. You'll be directed to my private Facebook group that I created just for clients and listeners of this podcast. And as a bonus, you'll get a free hour-long training on eliminating self-sabotage. All you have to do is click Facebook group in whatever podcast app you're listening on right now. Okay, let's get back to the show.
You could have all the money in the world, but you can't buy the amazing feeling of really changing someone's life. And for me, it was a combination of that's what I love, but also I realized that when I focus on myself and what I want, I would start to spiral. I would spiral in a really negative way. And so the way I found my purpose was like trial and error. I really wasn't super happy with the way my life was going. Like things would happen that were really good, but then things would happen that were really bad. And I would always feel unfulfilled. And when I don't remember the moment it was when I figured this out, but when I just dedicated my life to giving the most value in the most ways to the most people, everything changed. But a lot of people thinking living a life of service like that means you sacrifice yourself. And it really actually is the opposite of that. It means to be the best version of yourself in all ways, because you can't give that which you do not have. So if you're not fit and healthy, you can't give your kids the gift of being fit and healthy. If you're not disciplined, you can't give discipline. If you don't have financial means, you can't give financial means. And if you can't heal yourself, you can't give someone the solution that you gave yourself.
Okay, so I love that analogy, and there's so many different analogies that go hand in hand with that. It's a rising tide raises all ships, or secure your mask. The best version of you is the best version of you for the rest of the world. The world deserves a lit up, healthy, happy version of you. They don't deserve the you that is drained and trying to pour from an empty cup, because we can't do that. And I love that you mentioned that you realize that when you focused on yourself, that led to that negative spiral. So I would wonder if you could speak to that to the people listening, because I think that a lot of people are stuck in that. They're like, I'm doing stuff. I'm trying, I'm focused, but every time I keep trying to do more for me, I just end up in a dark, negative place. So how do you start to shift that focus to get out of that when you're in that downward spiral?
Yeah, I think the first thing is just 100% honesty. You can't have any self-mastery without 100% self-honesty. So if you're looking at your life and you're like, gosh, it doesn't feel like it's going great, I'm not super happy with everything that's happening in my life, then there's something wrong. And so we need to change that. So the first thing you change is you choose proud over happy. See, the problem is that a lot of people want to be happy all the time. They want to be comfortable all the time. And also more people than ever are depressed all the time. And the reason why is because happiness requires contrast. Just like you can't have darkness without light, you can't have hot without cold, you can't have happiness without pain. So the question is, are you going to choose your pain, or is your pain going to choose you? So are you going to choose positive pain? So when I work out and I go through a grueling workout, the contrast of the relief of that pain, of that positive pain, is I feel really good. I feel relaxed. I feel happy. I appreciate the way I feel right now. When I go in my sauna, that's 220 degrees. It's like torture. It sucks. But when I get out and I'm just laying there, I feel amazing. And then I have that perspective and that contrast to measure the other things that happen in my life by. A lot of people, the littlest thing will happen and they'll just fall apart and blow up and get triggered and think it's this huge disaster. And that's because they don't have the gift of perspective. And I know, like for me, when I was playing football in college, I was running to make a tackle and I see this blur go right in front of me. And it was one of my teammates. He hit the player first and he knocked himself out. My teammate knocked his own self out. When he woke up, we all knew something was wrong. He couldn't move. He was paralyzed from the neck down. And so at 19 years old, I was blessed with that contrast, with that perspective. And his name was Marcus. And I always would think when I'm having a bad day, my friend Marcus would give anything to have my worst day. That would be his best day. And so that perspective really did change my life. So really, if someone wants to start right now and make an improvement, start choosing proud over happy, right? So when you get up when you're going to wake up in the morning to work out, it's 5 a.m, and it would make you happy to sleep in, but it would make you proud to get up. Choose proud, because the happiness comes with the cost. Now you owe a debt. And the debt is when you do wake up because you chose happy, you have to pay the debt of feeling like a loser and feeling lazy and knowing that you let yourself down. You lied to yourself. You hurt your confidence because now you don't trust yourself because you don't do what you say you're going to do. You go to work out. Maybe you don't feel like being there. It'd make you happy to leave, but it'd make you proud to finish that workout. Again, you choose proud over happy. And the thing is proud is a higher frequency than happy anyways. Like if you had a coffee table in front of you and there was $1 million that you won in the lottery, and then if you had a coffee table and there was $1 million that you earned by giving value, and you could cycle back and forth with how you feel between the two, you would be proud of the money you earned. And that would feel so much better than the happiness that getting lucky brought you. And so I always tell people to start with just choosing what makes you proud and watch how your life changes.
I love that, man. I really appreciate that perspective. And perspective is everything. And I love how you said that moment when you were playing football, when you were young, it was almost a blessing, obviously a horrible thing that happened, but like you have that perspective and that now distinction that you can see. And another time I'm seeing, just hearing your story, is you can look at your business success and then losing it all and then trying to regain it as the same type of thing. So I'm curious, what did you learn on your first rodeo, so to speak, your first time creating a multi 6-figure a month business and becoming a worldwide phenomenon, that now as you're rebuilding or creating something new that you're going to use to shorten that learning curve?
The first thing I learned is that I'm not that important. That's the first thing I learned. To go back, when I was up until like junior high, I actually had Tourette's really bad. So yeah, and a lot of people don't expect me to say that, but I had the full blown everything you could imagine. I was that kid, and so I grew up really awkward. I really didn't have any friends. Even though I was really athletic, I was always picked last. Like in PE, I was the last guy picked. And so when I did become successful, and it happened relatively quick. Like it didn't take long. I didn't have that maturity to grow with it. And I was sort of I got caught up in it. And I started to believe my own hype. I started to believe I was more important than I was, or I was validating myself with things and the what and not the who. I wasn't validating myself with how much value did I give today. It was how much money did I make today. And because of that, it really caused me to have a blind spot for all the mistakes that I was making. And, I was just kind of spiraling out of control and feeling I was more special than I am. So I would say the big lesson I learned was that I ain't shit. I'm just a guy that really is here to help people and to deliver value and to just take it like day by day. Day by day, I have to earn that validation that I have provided as much value as I possibly could. And I did that by becoming and being the best version of myself in all the ways that I want to provide value.
So, could you give maybe an example of what that looks like tactically, like in the past when you would have focused on yourself more, but now what that shift looks like now that you've gone through that personal growth? Because I think it's helpful for listeners to see kind of the before and after. Like, this was old Steve, but now new and improved Steve 2.0 is like this.
Yeah, to be honest, there's a lot to that. It's not like one little like clean answer. To be honest, I did a lot of personal development, a lot of growth after that for like a good 10 years. I just worked on me. But one of the things is just knowing who you are as a man, what kind of person you really are. So, are you an honest person? Well, what does that mean? Does that mean that you're mostly honest, or that does that mean that you're just honest all the time, not just with other people, but also honest to yourself? Do you call yourself out on your own bullshit? Because it's really easy to lean on your strengths and then your strengths become your weaknesses. Because as you're leaning on your strengths, it's covering up your weaknesses. And, a lot of people have success in one area and that allows them to ignore their downfalls in other areas, and it eventually really does catch up to you. And so even in like learning to provide the most value in the most ways is why I even got divorced. I was in a pretty unhappy marriage through no one's fault. It was just I didn't really know myself and what I required, and I didn't know, and my ex-spouse, her and what she required. And so when you try to match up with someone, you don't really truly know what you could give and what you need. um it's really hard to find the right person, and as you might not even know yourself at the time, like I didn't. And so I was in this marriage and I thought I had to stay for the kids. I thought I had to stay for them, but all I was giving them was a blueprint of how to set the bar very low and have an unhappy marriage. It was the dumbest thing in the world to stay for the kids. That's not what you should do. And so part of me, like, giving the most value in the most ways was I had to get out of that relationship and to create and to find the best match for me so that I can give that value of demonstrating this is what you should be striving for right here, not someone that's like sucking it up and staying in an unhappy marriage so that you could repeat the same pattern and then your kids could repeat that pattern and it could just go on and on. So I think that's like one of the main things is to just really know who you are and what you stand for and stand by what you stand for. Not part of the time, but all of the time.
100%. It's easier said than done. And I think that a lot of people don't, as you said, know who they are. They don't know their passion. That's what you started with. And also, you said, are you honest? Are you honest all the time? That to me highlights values. And all of these things come back to, again, knowledge of self. What's important to you? What's the type of person that you want to be, the type of man you want to be, but the type of person that you want to be. I always say this is just human stuff, man, woman, whatever the hell you want to choose. Like, this is what being a human is. So how do you start to figure those things out, what your values are, when you aren't taught that in school? How do you teach values to your kids?
I think just like anything in life, you learn from mentors and you learn from examples, positive and negative examples of what not to do. My dad was a con artist, so I learned what not to do and examples of what to do. I started listening to Jocko Willing. He's an ex-Navy SEAL that really is heavy into leadership and started a podcast. And his book was called Extreme Ownership. And it really resonated with me. I was like, wow, you're right. You are responsible for every single thing in your life. Everything is your fault. And if everything is your fault, then you have the power to manipulate that and to do something about it. And then people will say, well, what if a plane crashed into your house? How do you take ownership of that? Well, you could take ownership of how you respond to that. How are you going to react to that? What are you going to do after that happens? Whatever you do after that is your fault. And that was the first time that really sunk in with me. And actually that fixed a lot of things in me because I noticed I wasn't taking responsibility for every single thing in my life. And I was making excuses sometimes. And so like one of the first things you could do is just never make an excuse. Rejoice that everything is your fault, because if it is your fault, then you could do something about it. And then it's contagious. Like when you start talking to someone and you're taking full ownership of everything, then that person starts taking ownership of everything. And it's like this virus that's a positive virus that starts infecting everybody around you. And that's how it is with my company. It's like our only arguments are more are, for the most part, are like, no, 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 it was my fault that this happened. No, actually, it was my fault this happened, and it's beautiful. It's beautiful. And when we start doing that, with your kids, it's not like for me to tell them what to do, but it's for me to demonstrate what to do,
Yeah.
and that's a big one, because a lot of times, like, your kids will do something, or you'll do something wrong, and you don't. It's like your ego doesn't want to admit it in front of your kids. But the greatest thing you could do is just to say, like, you know what, you're right. I was actually wrong in that situation. Thanks for pointing that out. That's awesome that you saw that. I'm going to do better next time. In fact, this is my plan that I'm going to implement to make sure I do better next time. So you do that, and then when it's their fault, they emulate what you just did. You know what I mean? So that's a huge one. That was a huge one for me.
Yeah, so good. I mean, Extreme Ownership is one of my favorite books. Jocko Willink is one of the, biggest people, thought leaders in this space that has really influenced me as well. And as you said, I love that you said, not only accept it, but rejoice in the fact that everything is your fault. That's so powerful. I wrote that down. And I really, really love that. And it's leadership by example. Like you just said, you don't have to tell your kids to do it when you do it, when you embody it. But the reason why extreme ownership has to be a book and something that we talk about and something that's taught is because it's not natural, because we don't want to hold those things because it
No.
feels shitty. And I don't want to have to take ownership over that. And when you do, you have to have some come to Jesus moments. You have to go like, damn, like this really is my fault. So I'm curious, when you first started like shifting into this mindset, what were, maybe if you have an example or sometimes where you had to be like, damn, like this thing that I was really trying to like push off or like pretend like it wasn't all about me. Like I gotta own this shit.
Oh man, it still happens all the time. I think the other day my wife was saying that she was just having a bad day, and she was saying that I wasn't, like, she was like, you never help enough with our 3-year-old, and I'm always having to, like, keep us on a schedule, or it was something like that. And my ego definitely got hurt by that. And I wanted to prove her wrong and win the argument. And and it started to get heated. But then in that moment, I realized that I can't give any value with me winning this argument. You don't win an argument with your spouse. It doesn't work that way, And and in that moment, what I could give is the solution. And the solution was, baby, I'm sorry I made you feel that way. You know, I'm gonna try harder and do better. And I love you. And my ego got a little hurt, and it's hard to even tell you that my ego got hurt, but it did. And I'm sorry. I love you. Can we just hit the reset button, and here's my plan to make sure that doesn't happen again. And that was hard, man. That was not easy to do, because my ego is strong, and I'm a fighter, and I want to win. And so that would be an example. And you're gonna, no one's perfect, man. Like, these people out there that act like they're perfect and all their life is all great and everything's, they always know what to do. That's such bullshit, man. The truth is that you just get better at catching yourself faster. You just, you have these tools in your arsenal of what to do when something happens. And then you just get better at, like, spotting it and realizing it's happening so that you could implement those tools a little bit faster. But we're human. And like, I think as a human, we're all flawed, and we're not supposed to be perfect, and we're never going to be perfect. But what we could do is improve our reaction time to our own bullshit.
Yeah, exactly that. It's not about being perfect. It's never about not making mistakes. I always tell my clients, like, it's not a question of if, it's a question of when. Like, you are going to mess up. You are going to fall off. It's not like, oh my gosh, if you mess up, this is what you do. No, it's like, when you mess up, this is what we're going to do. And the goal isn't to never mess up. The goal is to reduce the instances, the amount of time, the frequency, and how extreme they are. So every screw up isn't a world ending mistake. It's just a little speed bump and a bump in the road. And always it comes back to, as you said, knowledge of self and ego. So how do you notice when it is your ego talking and not reality, not the facts, when it's something that you need to check yourself?
I think a big, and I know, like, Jocko actually does talk about this a lot, but a big tool is detachment. And so for me, the way I detach is like this. I imagine I'm looking through my own eyes, having an argument with someone or some heated discussion. And a lot of people think detaching means not being fully present, but I think detaching makes you more present than any other time. So I imagine I'm watching this from the ceiling, looking down at myself, talking to this person. And now it's not me anymore. I'm watching two people and I'm seeing how they interact. And I'm like, what's this guy going to do? I mean, one of the most important questions you could ask yourself is like, what are you going to do? Okay, this crazy shit just happened. Cool. What are you going to do? Are you going to lose your temper? Are you going to be a little bitch and cry? Like, are you going to bury your head in the sand? Like, what are you going to do? And so I think the first step is to just detach and watch yourself as much as you, whenever you could remember to do that. And then your gut is like your conscience talking to you, right? Like this alignment with who you really are. When you're out of alignment, you feel it. And the more you like listen to your gut, the louder it'll get. And and you could build that muscle of feeling that being in alignment or being out of alignment. And so for me, like even in an argument I was talking to you about, and I was saying it was my ego, but really also what it was is I was scared because I get scared that if you're actually saying I never help, and I didn't agree with that, but if you're saying that, I get scared. What if you really think that? And then if you really think I'm the type of guy that never helps and always has to be told to stay on a schedule when it comes to like our 3-year-old, then maybe you won't love me anymore, or maybe you won't respect me, or maybe you won't be happy in this marriage. And so really what I'm doing is I'm reacting to what I'm scared of. It's not even what she said, it's what I think it's going to lead to. And so the best thing to do is to just talk and be honest. To be like, baby, you know, when you say that, it makes me scared. And again, my ego would try to stop me from saying that. So I'm putting my ego in check and like, baby, I get scared when you say that because I feel like if you really think that of me, that you're not going to want to like be with me anymore. Or if you are with me, you're going to be disappointed and maybe not respect me enough and therefore not really be that happy. And it scares me to think that of what that would lead to. And maybe you could help me understand how you're really feeling about me and about what I could do to make sure that doesn't happen. It, it's just being really vulnerable like that. Like that's hard to do. But I think that's what it does take is to just detach enough to see that that's what's happening and then just talk about it in a real vulnerable way with your ego completely in check.
Yeah, and you brought up honesty again, and also what that is doing is again that's making it not about them anymore and about me, right? It's like
Yeah.
you just said, it's like here's what you said, but here's what it makes me feel. You aren't
Yes.
putting your thing on them. So I appreciate that distinction, and all of this stuff takes practice. It is repetition, repetition, repetition. It's like going to the gym. The first time you pick it up, it's
Yeah.
going to be very heavy, but the more you do it, the easier it gets. So I really appreciate you giving that to us, and I always love hearing the perspectives of different people that I speak with on stuff like this. But I really want to know, Steve, what is the change that you want to see in the world?
That's a really good question. I would really love for people to have a purpose. First of all, just have a purpose in general. If you run into 100 people on the street and you say, what is your purpose in life? Probably 99 out of 100 won't know their purpose. And they'll think about it. They'll try to come up with a purpose. But if you don't know your purpose in life, how do you expect to execute that purpose? It's like getting in your car and driving and having no idea where you're going. And I think that's step one. I would love to see the world have a purpose. Step two is I would love for the world to have a really worthy purpose. And a worthy purpose is adding value. And adding value is such an amazing purpose because it makes you, by default, become the best version of yourself. So you could add that value. So now you get to enjoy that awesome version of you and what that life looks like with that version of you operating it. And then you get to help people, which what if we all just did that wouldn't it be a great place? I always imagine, remember that show Black Mirror, and they had that one social media episode where you could see someone's ranking like a digital number above their head. And, if your ranking gets too low, you can't even go into certain places. You can't have a job. And I was imagining, like, what if everyone who's walking around had a digital number of their head by how many people they positively affected? Maybe there's someone with 100, 200. Then you see someone with 100 million. And you're like, whoa, this person positively affected 100 million people. That's a valuable person. That's a valuable person. So how you validate yourself shows a lot about who you are. And if you could validate yourself by how much value you could give, I mean, I don't see how you could lose with that. So that's what I would love to see as an effective change in the world. That would be amazing.
Yeah, it would be amazing. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. I would love to see that as well. So when it comes to creating positive change in our lives, where's one place that you see people in your experience messing up a lot?
Health and fitness and nutrition. So this is an easy one, and it's one that's like kind of hidden. People don't see the correlation. So if you ask, 100 parents, what's the most important thing in your entire world? They'd say their kids. And I'd say, well, so to give your kids health, confidence, and strength, how important is that to you? Oh, it's very important. Now, the parent I'm talking to is 250 pounds, and their kid is overweight that's walking right behind them. Because I see it, when I drop my kid off to preschool, I see these overweight parents with these overweight kids. And the problem is that when they're, choosing that cake or that donut, they don't see the direct connection to them intentionally. I know this is going to sound crazy, intentionally hurting their kid. And it's intentional once they understand that that is what's happening. Once they understand it, then it's intentional. It might be unintentional right now, but once they understand the direct connection. So your kid's on their iPad. Yeah, you need to study and get off your iPad because that's what's good for you and what you need to do. And then they know mom or dad needs to lose weight and wants to lose weight and has pain from having this extra weight on their body, and they choose to eat that cake. So your kids are going to emulate 90% of what you do and listen to 10% of what you say. And so if you're not able to give them what you don't have, which is just basic health, nutrition, strength, and confidence, then you are intentionally hurting your kids. And I think that's one of those things that people, they really aren't seeing that connection. With my clients, the first thing I do is I find their bigger purpose. Like we were talking about that example earlier, something that they would never fail on, they would never let down. And so now it's like, look, you want to choose that cake? Cool. Say out loud that you don't care about hurting your kid in this moment. Say it out loud. Actually say it. The truth will set you free. If you're going to do it, own it. And once you start doing that, now you have the framework to be successful. So then you add on top of that nutritional knowledge, how to make the most amazing foods that taste unhealthy but are actually healthy. And now you're actually living that real purpose-driven life, and you're showing up to your kids as the best version of yourself, and you're actually giving them that version because you love them.
I mean, I couldn't agree more. That is extreme ownership, as you already said. It's exactly so on point. All of this stuff is connected. You can't have one piece without the other. And the physical affects the mental affects the physical. What you do affects others. It's never do as I say, not as I do. Everyone will be affected by what you do more than what you say. And not just kids, your siblings, your parents. It's been scientifically shown and studied that the people that you spend the most time with will start to reflect you, and you will start to reflect the people that you spend the most time with. So I think it's extremely impactful to just start to look at this. Yeah. It's not a judgment thing. It's just saying, like, this is the reality of how humans work. We have it built into our DNA to mimic others in certain ways. And we know that. So let's take advantage of that rather than falling victim to it.
Yeah.
So
And if you're experiencing pain because, you look in the mirror, it's painful to see that body in the reflection, a body that you're not proud of. When you're putting on your clothes and they're tight and you're buying bigger clothes, that's painful. When you go to the beach, you got to take your shirt off, you're embarrassed. That's painful. And if you don't solve that pain, you're committing to passing that pain on to your kids. And, when you really realize that that's what you're doing, then it becomes intentional. And then you have a choice to make. Do you really love your kids that much, or do you not? Or do you love food more than you love your kids? If you don't solve your pain, then you will pass it on. And I think most parents, once they see that, that's when they make that big change.
Yeah, definitely. And to be clear, I say this to all the time to clients, to everyone that I work with. It's like, there's no right answer. If you can say it and own it full out. So if you can say, yes, I want to, whatever it is, eat the cake, skip the gym, watch the movie, scroll on Netflix, whatever the thing is, if you can say, like you said, out loud and say, this is what's best for me right now in this moment, then by all means say it. But
If you
most
have
of the
no
time,
regret, if
right,
you have no
exactly.
regret,
If
that's
you
the
have no,
test.
exactly.
That's the real test. Do you have any regret? I feel like the last feeling you have about a certain action should be what you call that action. So like you're eating this cake, that you don't want to eat dessert, but they brought out dessert to the table and you're just like, oh, this is so good. And then you get in your car and you're like, oh man, why did I eat that?
Mm-hmm.
So that's regret. And if you're having regret, then it wasn't aligned with your conscience. And you don't owe anyone or anything any more or less than what's in your conscience. And if your conscience is telling you that wasn't right and you're feeling that regret, then that's telling you that's something you probably shouldn't be doing.
100%. I do this with my clients. The tool I give them, it's exactly that. All I say is, how will I feel after? That is the number one rule. If you just look at everything through that lens, how will I feel? Not when it's happening, not right before, but how will I feel after it's done? Because a workout will feel hard when I'm doing it, but after it's done, I'll feel accomplished. That dessert will feel delicious in the moment, but after it's done, I'll feel upset. When I snooze my alarm, I'll be cozy in bed, but when I wake up 30 minutes late and have to rush to work, I'll be upset. So it's like, all you have to do is just use a little bit of foresight and think, how am I going to feel after this is done? So that's a really easy tool that anyone listening can take. But I want to know, Steve, from you, the last question I have, same question I ask every guest, is if you had one action step that listeners can take right now, today, to start making change easier in their life, no matter what the change is, whether it's health, wealth, relationships, anything else, what can they start doing today to start moving forward towards the person that they want to be?
Well, I mean, the first word you said is easy. And the first thing I would say is don't look for easy. Like easy is not the path. If you're looking for the easy path, you're never going to be the best version of yourself. You're never going to get to the end of your life and look back and be like, damn, I did it. That's the life I wanted to lead. So I think the first thing I would tell someone is choose the positive pain in your life and embrace that pain, because that pain is required for happiness, to create the contrast for you to be happy. So what pain could we choose? Well, there's the pain of getting up early to get shit done. That's one pain. The pain of working out in order to be fit, lean, and healthy. The pain of eating healthy foods over the convenient fast food or unhealthy foods. Even the pain of working. Sometimes you're just sitting in front of your computer and you got to get this done, but it sucks. But if you don't do it, then you're feeling the pain of regret, the pain of guilt. So you choose that positive pain and select it, plan it, schedule your pain throughout the day. And then in between the pain, you're really scheduling your happiness. So that's where I would tell people to start.
What a rock star Steve is. Who wouldn't want to feel bulletproof? And thanks to Steve's tips, you can start to build that resilience into your life today. I especially love his point about choosing proud over happy. It's a great guiding principle and decision-making framework. Take those tips and, as Steve said, start to build your mastery of yourself. That is change made easy. And to connect with Steve, check him out on Instagram, where he's giving out tons more free value like this every single day. I've linked to his page directly in the show notes. Don't forget about the free Change Made Easy private Facebook community. Come join hundreds of change seekers just like you and receive free trainings, resources, and direct help from me that will help make your quest for change easy. Just go into the show notes of whatever app you're on right now and click the link that says Facebook group. You'll be directed to my private Facebook community that's just for clients and listeners of this podcast. And as a bonus, you'll get a free hour-long training on eliminating self-sabotage. All you have to do is click Facebook group in whatever app you're listening on right now.